Hey guys, so just a warning before we start. We tried to record the intro just a second ago, and Marquez is pretty sick, and I am as well, but his voice is going out pretty badly. And it sounds like he's been smoking like 2 packs of cigarettes per day, every day.
In this movie stars Daisy Ridley, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, John Boyega, and Adam Driver. Oh my god. Oh my god.
This is getting progressively worse.
Oh my god. Oh my goodness. Maybe we should do the warning before.
No, for real.
Oh my god.
I was thinking.
So, let's try this out. So, we're going to go see Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which is the second movie in the third trilogy and the 9th Star Wars film of the mainstream films. And this movie stars Daisy Ridley, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, John Boyega, and Adam Driver.
And it's written and directed by Rian Johnson, who also directed Looper, which is one of our favorite movies.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff happens in this movie, so I feel like if I say a summary, I might accidentally spoil something. And especially since Star Wars is such a big movie and it's such a huge fan base, you know, we could get in trouble for saying almost anything in the summary. So we don't want to say much about that. So if we go into the review now, you know, at the same time, I want to be very careful. And so this review is going to be kind of hard for us to talk about without saying much spoilers. But some of the main things I do want to talk about is a lot of the characters in this movie and the acting. The acting was done very well, I felt like. You know, you have Daisy Ridley from the first one,
right,
who did fantastic. And, I mean, I think Zach felt this way too, but Mark Hamill, like, you know he's a good actor from the original Star Wars. You've seen him in stuff, but here lately you've only been seeing him in stuff like the voice acting. So I wasn't really sure about how he would do for this movie, but he actually did really well.
Yeah, I know sort of a cliche thing to say, but the story itself in this movie was probably one of the strongest points. There were times where it got sort of slow, but the character arcs is what drove a lot of this movie, like Marquez was saying. Rey, Luke, Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren is probably one of my favorite characters in this whole in both these movies so far, Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. He's just such a compelling character, and the way they've written him and how he is sort of like conflicted on how he feels, if he wants to be good, if he wants to be bad. It's just really interesting to watch.
Yeah, and I'm being completely honest, Kylo Ren is honestly probably one of my favorite characters in all the Star Wars movies, because I feel like, and I mean, like, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from this, I like Darth Vader, I love Darth Vader, but I feel like, you know, and this is kind of spoilers for the original trilogy if you haven't seen that already, the original Darth Vader, we don't really see a lot of him, like who he is as a character, until the end of the last film. You know, and he's a great villain, but I feel like Kylo Ren's character is just such a deep villain that you see even from his first appearance.
It was revealed in The Force Awakens that Kylo Ren was actually Luke Skywalker's apprentice, and this movie actually delves even deeper into the past between these two characters. And I've got to say, I actually really loved the direction that they took Luke Skywalker's character. Which is funny because whenever Mark Hamill read the script, he actually flat out told the director Rian Johnson that he disagreed with everything that he wrote about Luke Skywalker's character.
Yeah, and I want to go more on the topic of Adam Driver and Kylo Ren, and then Rey as well. Because in this movie, they have, I don't want to go into detail, but they create this relationship, or this kind of connection between Rey's character and Kylo Ren's character that's really interesting. And basically in this movie, every scene with Rey, Luke, or Kylo Ren is actually a really good, well-written scene. All those scenes with them in there are just very interesting.
Then you have Andy Serkis, who plays the Supreme Leader, Snoke. And I've got to say, Andy Serkis is actually getting a lot more work in movies now here recently, and he's actually a fantastic actor. Like, he played Caesar in Planet of the Apes, and just his voice acting is just amazing, and his motion capture work is just phenomenal. And that sort of leads me to my next point, and that the CGI in this movie, which isn't really a surprise, but the CGI is just amazing in this movie. Just the space battles, the machines that they used. Snoke himself was all CGI. It just looked a lot, because in the Force Awakens it looked good, but there's some times where it got a little shaky. But this time it was great all around.
Yeah, and speaking about different visuals from this movie, the colors are really nice and really interesting. There was some scenes where the colors actually kind of put you in the mood for some of the scenes that were there. They kind of made you have this feeling, and the colors actually had a meaning to them.
And one setting that pops out in my mind is the island where Rey actually talks to Luke, and it was actually shown at the end of The Force Awakens. And what's great about that was that they didn't actually use green screen for that. They actually went to an island to film it, and that was all real.
Now, even though I really did like this movie, it did have its fair share of issues, and probably my biggest issue with this movie is the fact, not just so much that it's kind of a busy movie, like a lot of stuff is happening. There's like 3 main plot points, which a movie can sometimes carry, and it can find out some way to write it, but I feel like this movie didn't really have, especially in the beginning, it didn't have a good balance between switching between these 3 stories.
Yeah, and especially there were some times where the transitions even felt sort of muddled. Like it would just like transition to one scene to another, and just felt like just 3 separate complete movies. It didn't blend well at all.
Yeah, until you get to about like the halfway mark is whenever it starts actually getting pretty good. Like before that, it's pretty good. It just it just feels a little awkward at times, but after that, it gets really well blended together. Also, I feel like there's a few unneeded plot points that kind of sometimes halt the story. It kind of sometimes drags it down and makes it a little bit longer than it actually needs to be.
Yeah, and there's actually one point, I'm not going to go into any spoilers, but there's a certain scene with Finn's character and a new character named, what was her name? Rose. Her name was Rose. And they go to some like Las Vegas casino, and it was just really weird. It didn't really feel like it fit into a Star Wars movie, and honestly it felt sort of like something from the prequels.
And then the girl Rose, who's with Finn throughout most of the movie, her actress wasn't bad. I'm not going to say her acting was very bad, but I didn't really like the character. I felt like her character was sometimes annoying and sometimes really forced into the movie. Also, the character Lieutenant Connix, her actress, I believe her name is Billie Lourd, I think.
And I think she's actually Carrie Fisher's daughter.
Yeah, her. I don't want to bash her too much and I don't want to talk about her much because she's not a big part of the movie, but she didn't really have many lines, or maybe not at all. I can't remember. But whenever they showed her face, it almost felt like she didn't want to be in the movie. She seemed really out of it every time she was on camera. And
then there's a character that Laura Dern played. I can't remember the character's name, but it got sort of confusing how the movie wanted you to feel about her.
And now we're on to the infamous porgs. We've all heard the controversy about these little animals. And the one thing about these little animals is that people weren't very, wrong about them. Because these characters, these porgs, I felt like they actually were just there to sell more toys. And I wouldn't be surprised if I go to like Target or Walmart and they're all over the toy shelves whenever I get there. Because in this movie, the porgs almost have no purpose. In the past, whenever you see these characters in these Star Wars movies that for the purpose of selling toys, they actually have a reason for being in the movie. Obviously you have R2-D2, you have BB-8, you have even the Ewoks. They all have, you can be easily sold to kids as toys, but they also have a reason for being in the movie. They have a purpose for being in the movie. But the porgs, they're just there, and they're there quite a bit, and it just kind of feels forced and out of place when they're there.
Yeah, and it sort of leads me to the next point, and that's the comedy that they had in this movie. Like in The Force Awakens, wherever they used comedy and they made jokes, a lot of them landed actually, and I actually thought a lot of them were pretty funny. But in this movie, in The Last Jedi, whenever they try to make a joke, almost every time they try to make a joke, just fell so flat, and it felt out of place, and sometimes it even ruined some emotional scenes.
So guys, this movie is actually very entertaining. It's such a fun time. Like hardcore Star Wars fans might be disappointed in this movie, I'm not gonna lie, but it's actually pretty fun. It's actually very well written. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that Star Wars The Last Jedi is 80% awesome.
Yeah, guys, this movie definitely started off sort of slow, and I didn't really know how I was gonna feel about it. But it definitely did pick up towards the end and the middle. But overall, I definitely was disappointed with it. So I'm gonna say that Star Wars: The Last Jedi is 77% awesome.
Well, guys, don't forget to like and share. Also, comment below and let us know what you thought about this movie. Also, down below, let us know your ranking of all the Star Wars films that you've seen.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at 2awesomemen.
Also, if you're interested, don't forget to click and subscribe.
And also, those subscriptions will help with Marquez's cigarette addiction.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.